Yo, what's going on, everybody? For anybody who's in here, hope you all are having a good night or day wherever you're at. I'm gonna get this kicked off here in just a second. Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. Anybody in the chat, let me know if my audio sounds okay. Hopefully, it sounds alright. Cool. Well, I assume it sounds okay. I heard it for just a second, so and it sounded alright, and it sounded pretty good. So, we're gonna hop into things. Sweet. What's up, average enjoyer? How you doing? But thanks, I appreciate the confirmation that it sounds okay too. But yeah, let me hop over. I'm gonna jump into the Lost Singer light novel right here. Hopefully, I can see it all when it pops up on screen. Let me know if you can see the text and everything from the novel when it does pop up. I shouldn't have had such a delay on mine because it's like I'm trying to confirm to see if I can see everything. Okay, I think it looks good. I can see everything. Awesome. All right, well, let's jump into this. I'm super excited about this one for sure. Just kind of jumping into my thoughts, I guess, or expectations around this before I do actually kind of hop into it. But yeah, like I'm really excited about this just because this is the first novel that's going to kind of cover things after the kind of time skip kind of events that happen that do take place in the story. When they're going to be in university, they're adults now. It's going to be very, I'm assuming, different. So like a little bit of a change of pace between what we've seen previously when they were all like in high school and stuff versus now when they're in university. Maybe they have jobs in some fashion. Of course, a different shift too, depending on if like maybe Sakata still lives with his parents, I guess. Like where Kaide's at, where she's in high school and stuff. And then Sakata in Kaide living potentially with his parents now, both of them, mom and dad, which is a very different thing that what we were used to before because it was always before just Kaede and Sakata being by themselves living together and not with the parents, and their presence just wasn't there because of the whole mom situation being in the hospital. But with that being resolved for the most part now, yeah, I'm interested to see where everything is kind of standing at that point. But yeah, I want to see all the new characters and stuff, and how everything kind of plays out, new plot points and whatnot, what's going on with this. But yeah, we'll hop right in. So, all right, what defines me? Does anyone know? Voices echo in my ears, breaking down the boundaries. I'm becoming one with everyone, and that's not good. From Toko Kirishima's Social World. Okay, so already jumping into Toko Kirishima things. Okay. Alright, so chapter 1, Adolescence Doesn't End. Alright, cool. So chapter 1 starting off. So Sakata Azusagawa wondered how much oolong tea it would take to justify the 1,200 yen it had cost him for the 2-hour all-you-can-drink deal. As he finished his third glass, he flagged a passing waitress and ordered another. The rest of the table started piling on, ordering beers, highballs, lemon sours, and oolong highs. I'll be right back, she said with a smile. She vanished into the kitchen. While they waited, Sakata filled his mouth with the leftover rice, or leftover ice, before it melted. The waitress came back with a tray laden with glasses and mugs. Your oolong tea, she said, placing the glass in front of him. It had a straw sticking out of it, so he took a sip. It had the faint bitterness of oolong tea, no different from what they sold at the local grocery store. A 2-liter would cost him 200 yen, the price of entry here. Would get him 12 whole liters. Trying to drink that much in 2 hours was just torture. He'd live longer if he abandoned all hope of making it worth his while. If he abandoned all hope, as these thoughts ran through his mind, a girl asked, "Mind if I sit here?" He looked up to find her standing across the low table from him. She wore a long dress tied at the waist with a ribbon-like belt. On her shoulders was a military jacket with the sleeves rolled up. Her hair was lightened just a tad, and half of it was pulled back in a loose knot, casual without looking clueless. But her body was thin to the point of frail. She was smiling but didn't look all that confident. But maybe the teardrop mole just gave that impression. "I'd rather you didn't," Sakata admitted. The teardrop girl held his gaze, blinking slowly like it had never occurred to her he might say no. "Why is that?" she asked after a full 3 seconds. She sat down across from him, brushing her skirt to keep it from wrinkling. Clearly his attempted rebuff had been ineffective. The girl put a half-finished drink down on the table. The ice was melting, and the sides were damp. She pulled over an appetizer plate, clearly settling in. I could feel the glares of boring into my back already. He didn't even need to turn around. She'd come from another table, leaving behind a short-haired female friend and 3 men. Okay. And ordered his tea. He'd spotted them with their phones out, pulling up contact info. They started sharing IDs, so I bailed. His table was apparently a refuge. You could just refuse. What that I could. The teardrop girl seemed a bit at a loss, but that might just have been her default expression, so he couldn't tell if she actually was. "You got a reason you can't? I just don't own a phone." It took her a second to admit it. "You're one of the few," he said. "No one ever believes me." The truth did not always sound true. Sometimes it sounded like a bad lie. To make the truth convincing, she'd have to explain why, and she'd probably rather not. What did you have a bad day and fling into the what did you have a bad day and fling it into the ocean? People actually do that? He had, but since she left, Sakata elected not to volunteer that information. But how do you live without a phone? Do people die without one? So I'm told. The source is this high school girl I know. A high school girl? That was definitely a note of contempt. Were college students not allowed to know anyone younger? A kohai at my school. He tried to explain before she reached untoward conclusions. Ooh, excuse me. Yo, what's up, Richard? How you doing, man? Hope you're doing good. Just jumping into this light novel here after a good bit, and it's just a good little start so far. Meeting this new girl apparently. All right, I guess that's kosher. Cheers. The transition between those phrases was lost on him, but she held up a glass, and he tipped his to it. Each took a sip on their respective straws. "What you drinking?" "Oolong tea." "Me too." "Yeah? How many glasses to justify this tab?" Someone did the math. You'd need at least 12 liters. No one can drink that much. Pretty much what I thought. Such a vapid conversation, they might legitimately be better off talking about the weather. Keeping up the empty banter with a girl whose name he didn't even know seemed depressing, so Sakata followed the spirit of the gathering and introduced himself. Sakata Azusagawa, freshman, statistical science major. "Where'd that come from?" she chuckled, taking a bite of edamame. These are good, she muttered, then washed it down with tea. The way she held the glass, the way she pinched her straw, even the way her lips wrapped around it, each gesture was weirdly feminine. Sakata could see why boys had flocked to her. The regular dude inside him deemed her pretty cute, and he understood why they'd been eager to get her contact info. That body language, plus the way the teardrop mole made her look, permanently stimulated the protective impulse. It was like she had a spell cast on her that made people fall in love at first sight. "You watching me eat is pretty awkward," she said, glancing up at him. She didn't look the least bit put out, though. She was already on her next edamame. "You know what this gathering is about?" Sakata asked, glancing pointedly around the room. They were inside an Izakaya bar, specifically inside a room built for large parties with tatami floors and dugouts beneath each table. 6 tables in all, each seating 4. 1 table with just guys, 1 table with just girls, and 4 with a mix of genders, including the one with the 2 of them were occupying. They'd rented the room out. The 20 students here all went to the same college as Sakata and were busy laughing, clapping, and pulling out their phones to exchange IDs. It was the last day in September, Friday the 13th. The new term had started that day. that Monday, and everyone here was from the same class, a standard subject, part of the core curriculum, which was why students from a variety of majors were taking it. They'd be stuck together the rest of the year, so they had planned a party to get to know one another better. The bar itself was close to Yokohama Station. It was part of a chain and located in a shopping district a few minutes from the west exit. The all-you-can-drink ticket included. The price of admission had been 2,700 yen. The mixer had now been going on for a solid hour and a half, and everybody not at Sakata's table was fairly buzzed. Their voices and laughter were getting louder and louder. The party's organizers had planned for everyone to introduce themselves in due time, but everyone had long since forgotten that and wouldn't care if anyone brought it up. They were here for a good time. Miori Mito, freshman, international management major. Thanks. Naturally, I knew you already. I'm kind of famous that way. Or rather, his girlfriend was. Everyone in Japan knew and loved famous actress Mai Sakurajima. She made movies, TV shows, commercials, even worked as a fashion model if that weren't enough. She'd spent the back half of last year on a morning soap called I'm Back. Since Mai Sakurajima had first risen to stardom on a morning soap, it had been a comeback and had absolutely made her a household name again. And the relationship had not stayed a rumor for long. It was quickly something everyone on campus knew for a fact. Dang, so yeah, everybody on campus and university is already in the know. I'm assuming, she's an actress and she's, pretty famous, so word gets around quick, especially if they're spending a good amount of time together. All right, give me 1 sec before I hop into this next little page here. I'm gonna throw this somewhere. I'm gonna throw this in the Discord really quick. Wait. Okay, sweet. All right, let's jump back into it. So Maya was also a student here, so there'd been no hiding it. Miori's naturally was only natural, or wait, what? Miori's naturally was only natural. 6 months after Sakata enrolled, people had stopped bugging him about it. In fact, almost no one had ever asked him to his face if they were dating. He could count the number of times it had happened with his own 2 hands. He figured everyone was curious, but they also didn't want to act like a bunch of groupies. A regular vibe had developed on campus, like everyone was warning one another off. Must be nice dating someone pretty. I wish I was. Mai's mine and you can't have her. Jealous? That look went beyond envious into outright baleful. If you're looking to hook up, grab someone. Seems like you've got options. He jerked his head at the table behind them. Another girl had joined in, and they were happily chattering away. But the volume in the room was high enough that he couldn't make anything out. This time, Miori really was glaring at him. That's just mean, she said. Why were you sitting all on your own anyway? I didn't start that way. I know, I had a view from the other table. Sakata had been sitting with another dude from his major, Takumi Fukuyama. That guy had moved to another table a while back, having spent the first hour looping through the same unproductive conversation. I want a girlfriend, then go talk to a girl. Too awkward, then I'll talk to one. I'll come with. Go on ahead. I can't. Eventually, Sakata had gone to the bathroom and come back to find him sitting at one of the girls' tables, a tribute to the power of alcohol. It had even scored him some contact info. He relayed this to Miori, who took a bite out of the chicken nugget and said, "You could have moved to another table too." She didn't look like a girl who ate such high-calorie food a lot, but she was really savoring it. There was a look of bliss on her face. She swallowed, and her chopstick reached for another. There'd been 4 on another plate to start with. The idea being to split the plate among the 4 people at the table. Since only the 2 of them were sitting here, this was still her share. But given the total number of occupants in the room, it was depriving someone of chicken. But even as he crunched those numbers, Miori helped herself to a 3rd nugget, clearly staking her claim to the whole plate. Sakata, why are you even here? Mostly the food. He reached out his chopsticks and grabbed the last nugget before she could. The other tables have too many people, so there's less food to go around. Right. Sakata hadn't planned to come at all, but Takumi had been so insistent he'd given in. Everyone's starving, Miyori said, glancing around. She was clearly referring to the desperation driving their social interactions. You're different then? College wasn't like high school. No one had an assigned classroom, no single place where everybody met on a daily basis, no designated seating. All classes were held in various places, and people grabbed seats as they came in. The biggest change was that you no longer really had classmates. If you shared a major, you also shared a list of required classes and were more likely to run into the same crowd there. But the bulk of the freshman year was taken up by the core curriculum stuff, and less than half of the classes he was taking were major specific. There was not much pressure to connect to those around you, at least, and there was a lot less than in high school classrooms. All relationships were defined by that room, and Sakata was finally free of that stifling oppression. That does sound like a nice change, for sure. If anybody's gone to university, you definitely know that it's definitely a breath of fresh air once you kind of break that kind of cycle or whatever, or that stipulation that's kind of around that. All right, liberty abounded, but that also meant newcomers to college were not guaranteed a natural home, which was why people who happened to be in the same class were voluntarily gathering, forming makeshift communities, and trying to create their own home ground, hungry for good times and social ties, or maybe just saying a prayer in the hopes that they might leave here with a new girlfriend or boyfriend. I'm pretty famished, Miyori said, polishing off that third nugget. She chewed away, eyes on the party around her, but despite what she said, she didn't seem to be after anything in particular. This was simply a passing opportunity to watch them all whoop it up from a distance. Her gaze neither warm nor scornful. Miyori might not even care if she was starving or not. He didn't think that she even intended her words to carry much meaning. It was like they were just filling space. So not only 5 minutes left, the dude who'd set this up said, using his hands as a megaphone, let's start wrapping up. After party's karaoke, so please do come. Only half the crowd even heard him. There's an after party, Asasagawa? Are you going? Nope, got work after this. This late? You work nights? It wasn't really late enough to call night. It had only just turned 6. The party had started at the Izakaya, as the Izakaya opened at 4, pretty early for drunken revelry. Doing private tutoring for a cram school today. Today, I also wait tables at a restaurant. Sakata finished off his tea. The last drops spluttered against his straw. Teaching junior high? All right. Yo, what up, Jeffrey? How's it going? I know, I need to get better about wearing my glasses. I never wear them, and I can tell that my eyesight's getting kind of worse. So that's why I've been trying to make an effort to do better with that. Yeah, hopefully I get pretty good at it, or at least better with being more consistent with wearing these. All right. First year high school, he said, picking up his backpack, showing high school girls all the tricks. Naughty. I'm teaching them math tricks. I've got male students too. Wait, hold on. Let me back up for just a second. Who's doing what? It says it wasn't really late enough to call it night. It had only just turned 6. The party had started as the Izakaya opened at 4, pretty early for drunken revelry. Doing private tutoring for a cram school today. Today? I also wait tables at a restaurant. Okay, so this is Sakata saying this. So, doing private tutoring for a cram school today. Today, I also wait tables at a restaurant. So he's talking about his normal job that he has. Sakata finished off his tea. The last drop spluttered against his straw. Teaching junior high. First year high school. Okay. So that's probably what, in the future light novel, that Sada Himeji girl, that she is a first year in high school, that he kind of teaches and stuff. First year high school, he said, picking up his backpack. Showing high school girls all the tricks. Naughty. I'm teaching them math tricks, and I've got male students too. At the moment, he was actually only teaching 2 students, 1 boy, 1 girl. Since the students picked their teachers, his pool would increase only if someone chose him. Oh, okay. His students' quantity in classes taught directly affected how much he made, so he certainly would like a few more, but that was clearly going to require patience. The party was still going strong, but he slipped out, putting his shoes on first. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw Miyori tying the laces on her sneakers. No after party? Can't stand karaoke. She made that face again, but this time it seemed genuine. Maybe it wasn't. He didn't know her well enough to be sure. Let's go before anyone spots us, Miyori said, glancing back at the hall. It'll be a pain if anyone tries to drag us along, she added, winking at him. Then she led him out of the bar. Outside, they were hit with the wave of humidity. September was on the way out the door, but these days, summer just didn't want to leave. It being a Friday, there were huge throngs pouring out of the station into the shopping district, likely bound for dates, mixers, parties. Pushing against the tide, Sakata and Miori crossed the bridge over Katabira River, then followed the bank to avoid the crowds. Miori wasn't as fast of a walker and sometimes had to trot to catch up, but she never yelled at him for walking too fast. Sakata slowed his pace a bit anyway, glancing at her over his shoulder. You kind of ditched your friend. Manami? I don't know her name. I'm good. If I'd stayed longer, she'd have been pissed. Miori caught up with them and sighed. Don't want the boys your friends like coming after you, right? She probably hadn't expected him to understand, and judging by her vague answers, she never intended to explain further. That explained somewhat of an awkward smile that she had. Very perceptive, she managed. There was genuine surprise in her glance. Knew a high school girl in similar circumstances. She'd been asked out by a friend's crush, and it had not gone well. You know too many high school girls. Miori took a step away from him, her tone suddenly guarded. Don't worry, it's the same one. And she'd been in college in another 6 months. Let's say I believe you. Yeah, so he's talking about Koga Tomoe. So she's like in her final like third year right now, I believe, and she's going to be, graduating pretty soon in another 6 months, and then hopefully maybe going to university or whatever. Let's say I believe you. Scout's honor, taking the J.R. Asasakawa. Well, the conversation changed without the waters clearing. If he dug his heels in, that would probably just dig him into a hole, so he let the sudden segue pass without comment. Tokaido line to Fujisawa, you? To Ofuna. She sounded pleased with herself, likely because it was one station closer, and closer to Yokohama Station meant closer to the Kekkyu line they took to college. There was school at Kanazawa Hake Station. You grew up there? He asked. Pretty sure she didn't. Miori didn't seem like the Ofuna type. It was a city-run university, so most students came from Yokohama, or at least this prefecture. Those who came from out of town had a different air about them somehow. Nope, moved there on my own after getting in. Then you could have picked somewhere closer. It's close to Kamakura. Sakata had obviously meant closer to college, but the answer he got was clearly, certainly distinctive. To be fair, Kamakura was nice. He'd taken Mai there a few times. You're from Fujisawa? Feels like I am. He'd been living there for 3 years now, so he no longer felt like an outsider. The Yokohama suburb where he'd actually grown up would feel far stranger. He hadn't been back since junior high graduation. From Fujisawa. Alright, they reached the main drag and got stuck at the first light. Oh, right, Miori said, pulling a little plastic case out of her tote bag. It rattled when shaken, filled with the little mints from the sound. It was still full. She popped 3 at once into her mouth and handed the entire box to Sakata. Does my breath smell that bad? There was garlic in that chicken coating, and you're teaching in a bit, right? Yeah, sure, thanks. Sakata popped 3 mints in himself. His mouth grew frosty. The chill reached his nostrils. Not saying this in lieu of thanks. She asked, giving him the side eye. Careful what you guys do that to. Why? I mean, it seems like you don't want them hanging all over you. Then we're safe. It's only you here. Am I being targeted? I'm being relaxed. I mean, if you aren't ever gonna fall for me, you've got the cutest girlfriend in Japan. The world, but otherwise true. This made Miori laugh out loud. You would say that, she said with a giggle. The light was still changing. Hold on, let me reread this little passage of interaction here really quick because it's kind of cute. So it says, not saying this in lieu of thanks. She asked, giving him the side eye. Careful what guys you do that to. Yeah, why? I mean, it seems like you don't want them hanging all over you. Then we're safe. It's only you here. Okay, so that's Miori saying that. Am I being targeted? I'm being relaxed. I mean, you aren't going to ever fall for me. You've got the cutest girlfriend in Japan. The world, but otherwise true. Okay. Sweet. Alright, so as their conversation trailed off, both found themselves looking at the same thing. Across the street, a woman in a suit was handing out pocket tissues. She was in her early 20s. She'd taken her jacket off, but she must have been out here for a while because her shirt was drenched with sweat. Her bangs were plastered to her forehead. She was likely a new hire joining whichever company earlier that year. She was handing out tissues with staunch dedication, but no one was taking any. Everyone kept sailing right past her. Azusagawa, you ever worked a job like that? I have not. Nobody takes the tissues. Nope. Maybe only the two of us can see her. Miyori dropped that bombshell without changing her tone of voice at all. No way. What, you've never heard of adolescent syndrome? When he had wait, hold on. I need to read that part again. So who's saying what here? So Asasagawa, you ever worked a job like that? I have not. Nobody takes the tissues. Nope. So Sakata says nope. Maybe only the two of us can see her. Miyori dropped that bombshell without changing her tone of voice at all. No way. What, you've never heard of adolescent syndrome? So I believe Miyori Mito is the one saying that. When he last heard that phrase long enough that he didn't react right away, people can't see you, you can see the future, there are two of you, all kinds of symptoms. So she's at least familiar with it. Cool. You didn't hear stories about it at school? The light turned green. Stories? Sure. Sakata moved out first and Miyori lagged a step behind, but they're just stories. Across the street, he took a tissue packet from the woman. Thank you, she said. The tissues came with an ad for newly constructed condos. Sakata didn't think he looked like he could afford one. Maybe this lady was getting tissue tunnel vision and had forgotten what she was actually advertising. As these thoughts ran through his head, another man walked by and took a tissue. He was in his 50s, definitely more her target demographic. Quite a few people were taking tissues now. Looks like it's not just us. What do you know? Miyori lamented. And that lady's hardly the syndrome age bracket. She was clearly in her 20s. Does adolescence have a hard limit? I wouldn't know. It probably varied by the individual. There were no clear definitions. It wasn't like everyone automatically became a grown-up the moment they turned 20. Are you still an adolescent, Azusagawa? I prefer to think I'm past all that. Yeah, he hopes, right? You're in college now. Are you free of it? I think. It still got me. Any particular reason? I mean, I've yet to land a boyfriend. Ah, I see. Wow, you're totally giving me that smug already taken look. Miyori shot him a frosty glare, then she swiped a pack of tissues from him and started walking in the direction of the underground entrance. The gates are the other way. She'd been moving toward the stairs to the Yokohama Station, underground mall. I've got shopping to do first. See you around. She fluttered a hand at him and disappeared below without looking back. He wasn't sure what to make of Miyori Mito. She was friendly and expressive, but it was like there was a line between them, and she would come no closer. Excuse me. She probably split up here because they'd otherwise end up sharing a train. Maybe he was overthinking it, but she seemed like the type who tried to avoid that. She'd taken the tissues, which were useful, and left him with the condo ad, which was not. So he shoved that in his backpack and headed into the station proper. As he passed through the JR gates, he found himself wondering just how long it had been since he'd heard anyone mention adolescent syndrome. Yeah, I know. I bet it's been a little bit of a while. Maybe not that long because, I guess kind of. I think like the last thing that did happen was when like a little bit before his graduation and stuff. And all of that happened, and then I believe like at his entrance ceremony or whatever that they had for the university, when he ended up seeing the little Mai Sakurajima again at the very end of volume 9. So I don't think it'd be like that long ago if he's still truly a freshman right now in university. So maybe, a few months or like 6 months or something like that is a long time in his mind without hitting an adolescent syndrome sort of wall or situation, but yeah, cool. So going on to chapter 2 at Yokohama Station, he hopped on the Tokaido line. The train was packed with business types and students, all headed home. But since it was Friday and people had things to do, it was less packed than usual. Sakata secured a position, leaning against the door between cars, and took out the textbook he was tutoring with. He flipped to page 25, scanned the example quadratic function, reviewing the material before he had to teach it. As he did, the train moved steadily along, passing through the shopping district around Yokohama Station. That's weird. Yeah, they made a little blunder right here with this, so it's supposed to be district, not distract. around Yokohama Station and out into the residential areas beyond. As the station approached, the buildings grew taller, and once past the station, those gave way to quiet neighborhoods. Back and forth the scenery went. When he'd first started this commute, he'd missed the sea and sky and horizon, but after 6 months of it, he learned how to make the most out of this time. Generally, he spent it like this, prepping for his classes, but today he couldn't focus. He knew exactly why. The words Miyori Mito had said after the party. You've never heard of adolescent syndrome? When was the last time he'd heard anyone say that? Yeah, certainly not since he'd started college, and before that, well, he'd spent his third year of high school with his nose firmly buried in a book, prepping for entrance exams, and hadn't heard much of anything. That meant it had been at least a year and a half. Realizing others could no longer perceive you, living out a projection of the future, splitting into two versions of yourself, swapping bodies with someone else, the pain in your heart physically manifesting and affecting your body, traveling to the future, fleeing into a potential world. Sakata had encountered all these types of adolescent syndromes, but for the last year and a half, nothing had happened. That was a good thing, so he hadn't been worried about it or counted the days. Before he realized it, all this time had passed. Alright, so it's been that long, a year and a half? I guess that sort of makes sense. Maybe all of that stuff that was going on with him. Okay, yeah. So I guess that does make sense. Dang, so there was, yeah, that big of a gap. So now that I think about it, now all the events that did take place within Volume 9, happened, I believe, like right before or like pretty soon after Sakata maybe started his third year, because at the cutoff point where Volume 8 ends, and then starting off where Volume 9 starts off, Mai Sakurijima she just graduated, so, I believe, normally graduations happen at the end of school years, around that time frame. So, like, he ended his second year probably around once all that stuff started happening, and was maybe starting out his third year of high school, and all that stuff was going on with the adolescent syndrome, things with his mom and stuff too. And then once that stuff was kind of resolved, I don't think too much time had passed, so he was probably in the early portions of his third year of high school, and that stuff got resolved, and then he all that time passed, he still studied, and then he ended up graduating. So it was like almost maybe like a year of that like between the resolution of the stuff happening with his mom, and all the adolescent syndrome stuff up until like the end of his third year, so maybe around a year's time frame. And then he's he graduated, he's been in college for some time now, I'm assuming. So I guess a year and a half sounds right, now that I do think about it. That's I didn't think it was that long at first. Uni arc is the best arc. Yeah, man, I bet. I'm reading it so far. I haven't gotten to, like, I'm assuming, like, the thick of it just yet, just the beginning portions. But like I said in the beginning of this, I'm really excited to see what's going on, or what's going to be happening with all of these new things that are going to be popping up. I'm super pumped to see what's going on with all this. Sweet. All right, so where did I go? Okay, so I was right here. So before he realized it, all this time had passed. The Tokaido line train stopped at Totsuka and Ofuna before arriving at the Fujisawa station right on schedule. Sakata joined the line of people filing through the gates and emerged at the station's north exit. He turned left at the electronics store and saw the sign for the cram school he worked up at ahead. It was on the 5th floor of an office building. He took the elevator up, and despite the hour, said good morning to the front desk staff. Yeah, it does. It already does feel more mature. Yeah, definitely from the vibes already from Sakata having that interaction with Miyori Mito right at the get-go. It definitely feels different from what I'm used to. I just can't wait to see what everyone else is kind of up to and how that kind of changes a little bit. Maybe, when he hangs out with Kunimi or Futaba and everybody, I'm assuming it'll be maybe a little bit less kind of immature, I guess. I don't know. I mean, they've always had like good conversation or whatever anyway, so it might sound the same. They've always had like good or like somewhat mature-ish conversation even back then too. So like at least with Futaba or whatever, it's mostly her just kind of like talking smack to Sakata or whatever, giving him a hard time. That seemed a little immature. I'm just wondering how that's gonna play out, and if their banter is still gonna stay the same, or if it like maybe feels a little bit more mature and they approach each other a little differently. But we'll see. All right. Unlike regular school offices, there were no doors or walls here. The whole floor was visible. There was an open space for students with several tables in it, and the only thing dividing that from the staff room was a waist-high counter. It was a setup designed so students would have easy access to this teaching staff. Even now, there was a student at the counter asking a teacher about their English essay. Morning, Asasagawa. Make it a good one. This came from the school's principal, a man in his mid-40s. From the way he was nervously keeping an eye on the phone, something must have gone wrong. Sakata wanted no part of that, so he simply bobbed his head and moved to the locker room. He opened the locker with his name on it and took out a garment that looked like someone had combined a white lab coat with a suit jacket, then split the difference. This was the teacher's uniform here, worn over their regular clothes. He took the textbook out of his backpack and dumped some more mints in his mouth, just in case, and left the locker room. He headed for the row of classrooms in the rear of the main area. Despite being called rooms, these were just little study cubicles made maybe 8 feet by 6 feet each. The entrances had no doors and the walls didn't reach the ceiling. If you listened closely, it wasn't hard to hear people talking. In the next cubicle over, yeah, there were 2 students waiting for him, one boy and one girl. They were seated across from the central aisle from each other. The girl was sitting quietly, but the boy's attention was on his phone. Since he had headphones on, he was likely playing a rhythm game. What the heck? Let's begin. Okay, only the girl answered. She already had her book open to page 25. Her name was Judy Yoshiwa. Okay. So this is a different girl. I thought that this was gonna like introduce Sada Himeji like right off the damn jump. But this is a different girl, and he only has 2 students, one girl, one boy right now. She sported a healthy tan, but had quiet, unflappable disposition. She was on her school's beach volleyball team and was attending this school to keep her grades up. She wore the uniform of Minagahara, the high school Sakata had attended himself. She was 5'3" on the short side for the sport of choice. Most junior high athletes Sakata had met were Mai's height or taller. This girl might only be in her first year of high school, but most girls stopped growing around then. The boy muttered, "Sup," but failed to look up from his phone. He just kept tapping away at his game. His name was Kento Yamada. Man, that would be difficult to be a teacher in that kind of situation when, you have students, if you're an adult and you're trying to do your job and teach these kids, and then having a student like that that's just like kind of doesn't care in a little bit of a way. I assume it could be a little frustrating or whatever, but I hope that he's able to kind of get through to them. All right, so his name was Kento Yamada. Like Judy, he was a first year at Minagahara, but they were in different classes and didn't really know each other there. In his case, his first term grades had been so bad he'd started coming here in summer to improve his baseline knowledge, and he'd spent a chunk of the first class grumbling about how his parents made him come. Ooh, excuse me. He was 5'5", but looked taller because his hair was spiky. He hadn't mentioned sports at all, but from his build, he'd probably been on a team in junior high. Yamada, we're starting. The clock showed exactly 7 p.m., and class was in session. Just 2 more seconds. 1, 2. Page 25, quadratic functions. Sakata-sensei, you made me blow a perfect run. Ignoring Kento's moaning, Sakata started explaining how to use the functions. This had been on the first test after summer vacation ended, and they'd both missed it. He took the example and worked through the solution on the whiteboard. Once that was done, he had them each solve a practice question that followed the same pattern as this example. He was ready to help each individually as they got stuck. Judy did as she was told, working through the problem in her book. Kento frowned, thinking, and then gave up. Sakata-sensei, he said, slumping down on the desk. What? I don't get it. Oh, what don't you get? How to get a cute girlfriend. Not the answer he'd expected. Focus on classroom problems. You've got the world's cutest girlfriend. You must have tips, right? I might have the universe's cutest girlfriend, but I can't teach you that. This is not the first time. I like how Sakata, whenever somebody says, like, he has like this amount of like a cute girlfriend or whatever, or like, you have the cutest girlfriend in Japan, and he's like, I have the world's cutest girlfriend. What are you talking about? And he's like, you have the world's cutest girlfriend. He's like, I have the universe's cutest girlfriend. So he's hyping up Mai Sakurajima a bunch, and for good reason too. All right, so I might have the universe's cutest girlfriend, but I can't teach you that. This was not the first time Kento had brought this subject up. I only picked your class because I thought you'd have the insider knowledge to share. Ah, I should have gone with Futaba Sensei instead. At least she's got big tits. All right then, my guy. Oh, okay. So is Futaba? Okay, so she's doing the same thing as Sakata then, like based off of that. She's a tutor or whatever. She's doing the same kind of thing that Sakata's doing. So that's pretty cool to hear what's going on, because I was wondering what she was going to do at some point. In Volume 9, I was waiting for them to kind of let us know, or Volume 8, I was waiting for them to let us know what she was going to do in the future. I know they mentioned what Kunimi was going to do. He was like trying to be a firefighter and stuff, but they didn't say anything about what Futaba's future plans were. So that's good to get some information on her. All right, so the Futaba sensei he'd mentioned was Rio Futaba, a friend of Sakata's from high school. She was now attending a national science university and had started tutoring here a month before he had. I'd start by remembering that girls hate it when guys say stuff like that. He glanced at Judy, but she was grimly working her way through the problem. So keep it to myself. I think you learned about freedom of thought in social studies. Freedom to be lewd. Sakata had no clue he'd reached that conclusion, but it wasn't necessarily wrong. I get wanting a girlfriend in general, but do you even have someone in mind? The class was clearly not getting anywhere otherwise, so Sakata played along. I'm game for any girls, so as long as they're cute. That answer was downright refreshingly dumb. I think what's inside counts too. Might not be convincing when I say it. I rapped on the cubicle wall. Asasagawa sensei. He turned around and found Rio Futaba in the entrance. Since she worked here too, she had on the same uniform. Got a moment? She was acting distant and was clearly annoyed. What? Out here? Her glance ordered him out the room. Solve those problems, he said, and he left Kento and Judy to it, exiting the cubicle. Rio led him over toward the free space and sighed the moment she stopped moving. Keep your classes focused. We're getting complaints from the neighboring cubicle. She glanced at the cubicle next to his, where she'd been teaching physics. I'm taking things seriously. The words we're hearing suggest otherwise. There was little doubt that meant boobs and sex. I didn't say them. If he glanced down to see how her shirt front was, there was no telling what she'd say. So he diligently avoided that. Rio sighed dramatically again. Try not to get yourself fired, too. Too? Like someone else had. Look. Rio glanced at the free area outside the staff. A young male teacher was busy pleading with the principal. It's not true, I swear. Calm down, we'll talk in my office. This is all a big misunderstanding, right? The teacher turned to look at a female student standing a good 3 yards away. She was also wearing a Minagahara uniform and had a female teacher with her. Her head was down. Wait, hold on, let me read that again. So the teacher turned to look at a female student standing a good 3 yards away. She was also wearing a Minagahara uniform and had a female teacher with her. Her head was down and she looked plagued by guilt. I'm sorry, I never thought of you that way. Wait, hold on. So this guy might be in some like sus situation or whatever, with maybe getting involved with some high school student or something along those lines that he was tutoring. Yeah, no go for sure. Yeah, freaking weirdos these days. So what does she mean by that? He didn't have to ask. The awkward tension made it all too clear what had gone down here. Teacher-student romantic complications, exactly. Judging by the student's comment, she'd never intended to start anything like that. So likely, the male teacher had been or had seen signals where none existed and made a pass at her. You said you rely on me, that you wanted my help with stuff outside of school. On his way here, Miyori had cracked a joke about this exact situation, showing high school girls all the tricks. Naughty. But seeing it actually happen for real definitely hit different. I'm sorry, she said, striking down his pleas, though doing so seemed to pain her. No, he whispered, staggering. This way, the principal said, we'll talk this through, right? The principal put a hand on his back and pushed him away like he was a captured criminal, but he looked like less of a man who repented his misdeeds than a spurned suitor. Ah, man, there's always some weirdos like that out in the world. Okay, so who is this? Okay, is this Rio Futaba, I'm assuming? Or that looks like, okay, I don't know, that like looks like Rio Futaba, but like at the same time kind of looks like Mai Sakurajima. So this, I assume, when I've seen this picture before, I've seen it in the past, and I thought that this was Mai Sakurajima at first, but apparently this is Rio Futaba, it seems like, but maybe without the glasses? Or does she have glasses? I can't tell. Maybe she's wearing contacts or something. Alright, but still, great picture, looks amazing. Cool. Alright, so they vanish into the office. What's going to happen to him? The girl asked, concern written on her face. Don't you worry about it, the female teacher said. It was obvious there were certain steps they'd have to take. Given what he'd done, that was unavoidable. Don't be too hard on him. I'm really okay. I'll let the principal know for now. You'd better go home. Yeah, the girl said, but she didn't move, clearly still worried about what the consequences the teacher would face. Her eyes never left the office door. Sakata had a better voice now, and she looked like a straight-A student, the kind of girl who was nice to everyone. Her hair was done conservatively, and her uniform was impeccable. What little makeup she wore was a natural style in high school. He'd definitely have mistaken that for no makeup at all. Don't end up like him, Asasagawa. Do I look like I'd go for a student? No, but... See? But what about the other way around? I'm more popular than you think. wait, hold on. So she said, he said, do I look like I'd go for a student? No, but see? But what about the other way around? So assuming the girl would fall for him or something like that. I'm more popular than you think. Yes, that's why I'm warning you. Futaba. What? You're supposed to deny that. I was joking. But you are more popular than you think. He definitely is. Considering, everything that we've seen thus far in the story, Koga, Shoko, different things like that. Even Miori Mito having some interactions like that and stuff. I know that was like kind of tame or whatever, and maybe not flirty or whatnot, but still, he meets girls and he, ends up making friends with them a lot of the time. A good deal of time. And some of them do end up kind of taking a liking to him a good chunk of the time, too. Ryo's tone made it clear this was a statement of fact, and he couldn't argue with that. Then we'll just have to hope the cutest girlfriend in the universe keeps me safe. Didn't you say you hadn't even seen Sakurajima for like a month now? Mai was in Hokkaido filming a movie. College summer vacation ran for nearly all of August and September, so she'd filled that with 2 starring roles. Oh, wow. So college summer vacation is through a lot of August and September? Okay. That makes sense now, because I remember they said, like, oh yeah, like, something about, like, summer vacation passing recently, but I was like, it's September now where they're at, kind of, I think, so, or the end of September, so I thought that was a little weird. I was like, summer is June, July, what are they talking about? The first had wrapped up in August, and she'd come back from Niigata with Sasa Dango. She called the other night to tell him the second would take her till the start of next week. Don't worry, she'll make up for it. Then I'll get back to class. No time for my corny bragging. Just keep them on task. With that, Ryo headed back to her class, and Kento poked his head out of the cubicle. Sakata-sensei, are you done yet? Yeah, I got yelled at because of you. What? He really didn't seem to get why, but then he blinked looking over Sakata's shoulder. So, yeah, Futaba. Kento said nothing, but he then obviously looking at the girl from before. She was still lingering in the free space. You know her? Sakata asked. So this is where Sada Himeji comes into play. So, damn. Alright, I wasn't expecting... I thought that she wasn't going to come here. So, she was in that situation where that scummy teacher or whatever was trying to come on to her. And then, just as Ryo Futaba said, don't get involved in those types of situations because it could happen the other way around because he's more popular than he thinks. And I believe in the synopsis or summary or whatever, the little snippet that we got of Volume 12, it was that Sada Himeji ends up having a crush on Sakata. So it's like kind of like that, I don't know, these things being related and what's going to happen in the future. Damn. All right. Yeah, she's in my class, he said. He knew both her names. Interesting. What, that your type? Sakata had been talking off the cuff. Maybe he's the guy that had like that. So this dude, Kendo or whatever, or Kento, he's probably the guy that's in that picture that they show where they have like a little love triangle or something like that. Maybe that Judy girl was the other girl that's in the picture too. So that's what I was thinking, because I know there was a little picture that showed kind of like a little bit of a love like triangle or like love like cycle or whatever, something like that. So it was like Sada Himeji had a crush on Sakata, and then there was another guy that had a crush on her, and then there was a girl that had a crush on that guy. So I'm assuming it's all 3 of those people that were other than Sakata are Sakata's students. So one of them being the Judy girl, she has a crush on the Kento guy, and then the Kento guy having a crush on Sada Himeji, who ends up becoming a student of Sakata, and then Sada Himeji having a crush on Sakata. So I think that's kind of what ends up going on there, but we'll see. I want to see what happens with that. All right, so yeah, Sakata had been talking off the cuff, but that had apparently touched a nerve. No, Kento said, clearly irate. Cool. Come on, Sakata-sensei, teach. Well, I'm glad to see you motivated. If Kento tried to derail class again, he might have to bring this back up. As it was, the rest of the class stayed focused. Ryo didn't have to yell at him twice. When class wrapped up and Sakata left the cram school, it was almost 9. The class itself lasted 80 minutes, and the rest of that time had been logging reports on the students' levels of understanding and waiting for Ryo. Outside, he walked with her toward the station. Oh, right, Ryo said. Like she'd remembered something. Oh, right, Ryo said, like she'd remembered something. I got a text from Kunimi earlier. What'd he say? He successfully completed firefighter training. Hey, let's go. Good shit. That's freaking cool to hear. Yeah, because we knew that he was going to be doing that as his occupation, and he wasn't going to be going to, traditional university or something along those lines. So yeah, it's good to hear that, he's taking those steps and, he's completed the training for it. That's really cool to hear. Oh, that was today? Yuma Kunimi had taken this local civil servant exam right after graduation. It was a fire department requirement. He'd cleared that hurdle readily enough, but they weren't about to take an ordinary high school student and dispatch them right away when lives were at stake. Yuma was first sent to a training center where he'd spent 6 months living and breathing their training regimen. This info had come with the exam results. He'd been there since April. The last day of September was the 6-month mark exactly, and he said he'd already locked a posting, so we shouldn't worry. Why would anyone worry about Kunimi? Yuma always came through. Sakata's line got a bit of a smile out of Ryo because she likely agreed with the sentiment. Definitely, yeah. They're both, they're all best friends and they do have the utmost trust in him. Yeah, he's a really good, dependable person. So he's starting Monday, so once he's settled in, he'd like to meet up for tea. As long as he's paying. I figured you'd say that, so I already told him as much. By this point, they'd reached Fujisawa Station. Ryo lived in Kugenuma. Dang it, I can't pronounce these Japanese words right now. A stop down from the Dakyu Enoshima line. They split up with a simple goodbye. This late, the air was finally starting to feel like fall. Enjoying the chill, Sakata walked home from the station alone. He crossed the Sakai River Bridge and started up a long, gentle slope. There was a little garden along the way, and a while after that, he saw the apartment building up ahead, the place they'd moved into when he started high school. Wait, hold on. So he crossed the Sakai River Bridge and started up along a gentle slope. There was a little garden along the way, and a while after that, he saw the apartment building up ahead, the place they'd moved into when he started high school. Okay, so once he'd made sure the mailbox was empty, he found an elevator waiting on the first floor. He got in and pressed the button for the 5th floor. He considered moving for college. Of course, he only considered places he could actually afford on his paltry earnings. Ultimately, that hadn't happened. He had good reason to stay put on the 5th floor. He left the elevator and headed all the way to the left to his apartment. Insert key and open. I'm back, Nasuno, he called out to his cat as he came in. Something felt out of place. There were 2 pairs of shoes that hadn't been here when he left. Oh, hey, Sakata, welcome home. Slippers flapping, Mai came out to meet him. Oh, so Mai's back. Cool, so she came back a little early from her thing, I'm assuming. Oh, thanks, nice to have you back, Mai. Nice to be back. I thought your shoot was supposed to take a few more days. The rest we can do on set, so I came home. It had been a full month since he saw Mai's smile in person. Why are you staring? I feel like you've become even more beautiful. Isn't it nice? With that, she turned and headed back into the living room. Sakata followed. Oh, there you are, Kaede said. His sister was sprawled out on the living room couch. Nasuno clutched in her arms. She was playing with the cat as she watched a game show on TV. It didn't air at this hour, so she must have recorded it. He saw familiar faces on screen, Nadaka and Uzuki. The latter's daffy comments had the MC and other contestants in stitches. You're back, Kaede? He'd recognized her shoes at the entrance. Sakata lived here in Fujisawa, and their parents lived in Yokohama. Wait, hold on. So they still don't live with the parents? Wait, so you're back, Kaede? He'd recognize her shoes at the entrance. Sakata lived here in Fujisawa, and their parents lived in Yokohama. Okay, so Kaede, so they don't live together. So Kaede was rotating between the two domiciles, splitting her time evenly between them both. Okay, so yeah, so Sakata doesn't live with the parents. Kaede is kind of going back and forth between where Sakata lives and where the parents live. Cool, so interesting. Splitting her time evenly between them both. She was a high school student, but attended a remote learning school, which meant she was free to live where she pleased. You could take classes anywhere as long as you owned a phone. I told you I had a shift today, she said, glaring at the answering machine. The light on it was definitely flashing. She started working in the spring, the same restaurant. What? No way. What the heck? What? That definitely took me by surprise. So Kaide's working now. Like, dang, that's pretty cool. Like, man, I've said it before, but like she's taken some strides when it comes to everything that she had been going through in the past and stuff. Because you know what situation Kaede was in, her adolescent syndrome, her social anxiety and all that stuff, and now she's got a job. She's doing her online school stuff, and she's got a job working at the restaurant where she has to, I'm assuming, like Sakta does, deal with customers on a very regular basis, strangers at that. So that's definitely crazy to hear. What in the world? So the same restaurant he worked at, that had been what Kaede wanted and was a major factor in why they hadn't moved. In return, part of the rent was now coming out of her wages. Seriously, Sakata, you've got to buy a phone. I never dreamed I'd hear those words from you, Kaede. Right? He'd been shocked enough when she'd wanted one of her own. She'd been badly hurt by classmates in junior high, and phone-based social problems had been a big part of that. So she's got a phone now. Dang. You'd rather Sakata owned a phone too, right? Yes, but I'm used to it now. You can't just let Mai indulge your bullshit. She'd failed to secure Mai's support, so she immediately went back on the offensive. I'll think about it if I have wages left over. That's what you always say. Whatever. Dropping the issue, she peeled herself off the couch and deposited Nasuno on the floor. You're not ready for a bath yet. I'll go first. She paused the video and headed toward the bathroom. What, you hadn't already? I was waiting for you to get home first. That's sweet. The door slammed behind her. This was probably her way of giving him time to talk to Mai alone. He couldn't decide if that was how considerate high school girls should be or just his sister trying to act all mature. You eat yet? I'm good. I ate at a class party before work. Fall for any cute girls there? On the phone last night, he told her his core curriculum class was holding a gathering. Not only had she not objected, she suggested it was a good opportunity to meet more people. But she had wrapped it up with a final threat, not even to consider cheating on her. I did not. Shame. Oh, but? But what? But why is there a but? There was this one girl. Oh? She's in college but doesn't own a phone. Is the punchline gonna be that you only can see her? He understood why she'd react that way. It was just that weird. Wait, what was that last part? So every college student had a phone these days. She was certainly the first phoneless college student Sakata had met, besides himself anyway. You've now made me very nervous. Wait, you've made me nervous, he said. I'll have to verify that on Monday. You do that. Well, I'd better get going. Mai grabbed her suitcase off the couch. Already? Got an early start tomorrow. I'll be back on campus Wednesday. She was already moving to the door. I'll walk you down. He took a step, but she grabbed his arm. Don't want anyone taking photos, so this is far enough. The office is on my case about it. She used him for balance as she did the up ankle straps on her pumps. I left a present in the fridge. Share it with Kaede. I better eat my half before she devours it all. Mai laughed and cupped his cheeks in her hands. What? He asked, making octopus lips. Nothing, she said, giggling. Probably just a bit giddy about seeing him again, and that made her feel mischievous. That was all, and if Mai was having fun, that was all he needed. No matter how trivial the reason, Mai's smile was enough for him. She let go of his cheeks, fluttered her fingers, and said bye, and was out the door. Sakata savored the lingering embers of her mirth and quietly locked the door behind her. All right. Sweet. So we're jumping over to chapter 4 now. So sweet, jumping into this. I feel like I'm moving through it fast, at least chapter-wise, faster than what I was before in the previous readings. But then I look at the percentage of where I'm at right now, and I'm barely at 18%. I don't know if like these light novels are a little bit bigger. I don't know, they have more pages or whatever. But yeah, I'm surprised I'm still barely at 18%. All right. So the weekend passed and Monday arrived. October 3rd was a rainy morning. His classes that day started from second period at 10:30 a.m. He took his time getting up and getting ready to leave. Take care, Kaide said, seeing him out the door at 9:15. The temperatures were getting a bit more autumny, but the humidity still spoke to summer. In a t-shirt and easy pants, cropped to leave his ankles bare, he was pretty comfortable. This summer just wouldn't go away. When it did end, it would probably lead directly into sudden winter, probably like super cold. It felt like fall was getting shorter and shorter, or was that just him? With those thoughts running through his mind, he reached Fujisawa Station. There were still lingering traces of the morning rush. No uniformed students left, but plenty of older students in business suits. On the station's second floor, he went through the JR gates and down to the Tokaido Line platform. He didn't have to wait long before the 9:32 Kogane came in. The usual train, the usual ride. It took about 20 minutes. Sakata got off at Yokohama Station and switched to the Keikyu Line's distinctive red cars. Kanagawa Prefecture was shaped like a dog, and this express went all the way to the front legs at Misaki Kiguchi. Misaki Guchi, and there was no extra charge for riding the express. You could just use a regular ticket. He got on near the front of the train, avoiding the congestion. As the train pulled out, he stood near the door, watching the scenery go by. When he first started college, the view alone had not been enough for him to place himself. But after 6 months, he had a much better grasp on things. He'd naturally acquired the gist of what buildings and offices were where. After riding for a while, he passed a high school known for having one of the best baseball teams in the prefecture. That was a sign they were almost at his station. Since he still had a little time to kill, Sakata let his eyes run across the interior ads. He found one for a fashion magazine with Mai on the cover. 2 college-looking girls were talking about it. That outfit's so cute. It's cute because Mai Sakatajima is wearing it. Point taken, etc., etc. She's even cuter in person. The world is so not fair. Sounded like they'd seen her out and about, and they were on this train at this hour. And if they were on this train at this hour, odds were they And if they were on this train at this hour, odds were they went to Sakata's university, which meant odds were high that they knew who he was, too. If he kept staring, they'd catch him looking, so he turned away and found himself looking right at someone he knew. Ooh, okay, I just saw that first name on the next passage. Ikumi Akagi was standing in front of the next door down. One shoulder was resting against the door itself, but she kept her back bolt upright. She was holding a thick book in both hands, and there was no Japanese on the cover. He suspected the contents were entirely English. She was very focused. She'd been his classmate back in junior high. 3 years later, they'd run into each other at college, but they hadn't spoken since that encounter. You're Asasagawa, right? Akagi. Yeah, been a while. So that was like at their entrance ceremony that they had for the university. That had been the end of it. Nadaka had caught up with him a moment later, and Yukumi had promptly said bye and left. She hadn't spoken to him since. He'd seen her around on campus, but hadn't felt compelled to make contact. They hadn't known each other well, even back in the day. She was just one of 30 classmates, the kind of person whose name you forget the moment you graduate. Reuniting after a 3-year gap had provoked no real emotions, and the encounter had led to nothing of note. That probably was true for Yukumi too. She just spotted a familiar face at orientation and said, hello, nothing more to it. The only real development made over the last 6 months was that he'd learned she was in the nursing program. Sakata's, maybe that's why. Okay. I don't know if that's why because I know that in volume 11, I believe Ikumi Akagi is the person on the cover. I remember before I got confused and I thought that Toko Kirishima was on the cover of volume 11, but it's actually Ikumi Akagi. And Toko Kirishima is on the cover of volume 13. But since Ikumi Akagi is on volume 11's cover, she's wearing like some like certain type of dress or whatever, or like outfit or uniform or whatever it may be. And that's what it might be. It's probably like a nurse's outfit or something along those lines. Maybe a certain style of it or something like that. But that makes a little more sense. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe maybe it isn't. So that's very that might explain some things as why she's dressed like that. Okay, so Sakata's university had a medical school, and anyone trying to become a nurse would be in Ikumi's division. The medical school had its own dedicated campus, but since the bulk of the first year was devoted to core curriculum, first years from other schools were also centered at the Kanazawa Hake campus. Ikumi was one of these. At the party last week, two guys from the nursing school had come, plus one girl from the main school of medicine. She must have sensed eyes on her. Ikumi's head turned his way. He was pretty sure she'd worn glasses before, but wasn't now. But her gaze clearly focused on him. She blinked twice. Her expression was exactly as it had been when she was reading. She blinked a third time, then went back to her original stance. One shoulder against the door, glancing briefly outside to confirm the rain had stopped. The train reached Kanazawa Hake station without anything else transpiring between the two of them. On the platform, Sakata headed up the stairs to the gates. Kanazawa Hake station had recently finished a major remodel, and the area around the gate still looked very new. The Seaside Line station had originally been a short distance away, but the remodel had moved into the station, allowing for smooth transfers. The easiest way to campus was to go up the stairs and over to the west side of the station. The bridge over the tracks was nice and wide. Once down the stairs, it was a 3-minute walk along the tracks to campus. There weren't that many students on the road with him today. The college itself had 5 times the students his high school had, but since the class start times were all over the map, the station was never as packed as in the morning, where high school, there's a set start time right in the beginning or whatever, so that's when everybody's there. It's a flood of people. But in, college, like it says, there's varying start times of various classes or whatever, so it's like very much so more spread out of, the traffic that flows through, I'm assuming. But I'm assuming maybe it's still a little like traffic or congested because there's so much more people. But yeah, it sounds like it's definitely better. The students coming in now all started with second period. Sakata joined the flow of the crowd through the front gate. There, he was greeted by 2 rows of ginkgo trees running right down the middle of the campus. When he'd first come here to sit the exam, he'd looked at these trees and thought it made the place feel like a real college campus. This sort of scenery popped up in a lot of college set movies or TV shows. To the left inside the gate was the main gym where the orientation had been. Beyond that was the sports field. 5 or 6 students were doing some running there, likely soccer team members getting some extra training in between classes. The team seemed to have a lot more control over their schedules than high school teams had. Across the ginkgo trees from the field was a 3-story building where the majority of the actual classes were held. It looked like a giant square, but it was an actual box with a park in the center. His second period class was in there. Near the center of the grounds was a noteworthy clock, the university symbol, and he turned right just in front of that. Sakata heard footsteps running up from behind him, and a moment later, someone slapped his back. "Azasagawa, sup?" "Hey there, Fukuyama." So Takumi Fukuyama started walking with him. He was the first person Sakata had seriously spoken to after enrolling. He'd also had the first to work up the courage to ask, "Is it true you're going out with my Sakurajima?" And since their elective choices had lined up, they wound up spending practically all their time together. "How'd it go Friday?" Takumi asked, his curiosity very apparent. "How'd what go?" Sakata genuinely wasn't sure why he was asking. "You earned the enmity of every dude there. You took Mito home with you." "I did no such thing. You left at the same time." "Yeah, when the party ended, I had to go to work, so we split up at the station." "That's so boring." "Of course, if anything had happened, I would have held it against you." There were no right answers here. As Takumi nattered on, they went inside and headed for the 3rd floor, one stair at a time. Takumi was telling him all about who'd sung what at karaoke, who'd been any good, and how popular Toko Kirishima's songs had been. So more Toko Kirishima. She's still pretty big then, huh? He'd heard the name before. Toko Kirishima had gotten her start online and was massively popular with the teen to early 20s demographic. So she'd never once shown her face in public, fueling endless speculations about who she really was. All they really knew was her gender, in that she was roughly the same age as her audience. More like she's big now, or maybe will be. Sakata wasn't sure what that meant, but clearly she wasn't going anywhere. Sakata had no idea online singers could get their songs in karaoke machines. I mean, look, Takumi held out his phone. It showed a pair of bare feet standing on the grass, delicate looking, probably a girl's, as he watched beautiful, powerful a cappella vocals started playing. The camera angle changed, showing her from behind. More scenery was revealed. She was standing in the center of a stadium. No one was in the stands. The shape of the roof suggested it. It was probably the International Stadium Yokohama. The next shot was from the side, showing only her mouth as he hit the or as she hit the chorus. All the angles were pretty extreme, never revealing the whole girl. It never showed her face above the lips. She looked a little familiar, but the song ended before he could figure out why. I know, man. I keep wondering, like, who she is, what's going on with her. They keep hinting at things about her that, like, right off the jump, or not right off the jump, but like pretty soon, like with the new kind of arc or whatever, starting with volume 8 of the light novel, they mention her in it. I wasn't expecting them to mention her that early in this kind of story, but man, yeah, they did mention her with Mai Sakurajima. They mentioned her at the end of volume 8 with Shoko saying all those things, saying that, you know, out of all the timelines she's lived, Toko Kirishima, she doesn't remember anything about her other than, that she hadn't heard of Toko Kirishima in any other timeline other than the one that they're currently in. Just all kinds of stuff with her, and they keep mentioning her and sprinkling little pieces of who she might be or whatever, or just mentioning her in general throughout like all the stories so far. And I'm like, dang it, I want to know who she is or what's going on with her. Yeah, it's definitely going to be cool once we do find out. Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah. All right. So the last shot was of her ears, revealing that this had been a commercial for wireless headphones. That's a Toko Kirishima song, Takumi said. So was that her? Apparently not. Huh? That was a mysterious commercial beauty who can really sing. How could he call her a beauty when you couldn't see her face? Okay, so she had given off that vibe. It's a cover, basically. So who's the girl in the commercial? Keeping her face hidden like that got him interested. I'm telling you, it's a mystery. Nobody knows. Yep. What a headache. Toko Kirishima was a mystery online singer, and the girl covering her song in the commercial was also unidentified. But there are rumors it's Mai Sakurajima. What? So if it was Mai, they'd better be off showing her face. They'd be better off showing her face. She'd been working since early childhood, and with her return to the morning soaps, people from all walks of life knew who she was. And if that was Mai, there was no way Sakata wouldn't have realized it, even if he could only see her feet, back, and lips. No, not her. They say Toko Kirishima is actually Mai Sakurajima. That's it's definitely interesting because there was a few different characters that I was like, there's so many, like, there's a good chunk of these girls, like these newer character girls or whatever, that kind of have like the same look to them. I've noticed like Mai Sakurajima, and then Shoko to some extent kind of has like somewhat of that same sort of look. Who else? Ikumi Akagi. Even that Miori Ito girl, or Miori Mito girl, she kind of has like that same sort of look too, minus like the little mole that she has, but you know, kind of like pale, like nice looking, long, like kind of like blackish or whatever hair. And then Toko Kirishima, as we can see in volume 13 too, they all have kind of like that same-ish kind of look, where I was like, almost when they would show pictures and stuff of like certain light novels, I was like, is that Mai Sakurajima or is that this other girl? And I'm like kind of confused on as to who it was. But yeah, like it's very weird how like so many of them kind of look the same or have some sort of like the same kind of look, you know, like slim, like really pretty, long black hair, stuff like that. It's like almost, there's so many girls that have that sort of look within the story. All right, but let's carry on. That was news to Sakata. Lots of people pushing that theory, Takumi said, scrolling on his phone to pull something up. Watch your feet. It would be bad to stand idly by while someone fell down the stairs because they were too busy with their phone. Is that a pickup line? Takumi laughed. Sakata pretended he hadn't heard this. What do you make of it? Is Mai Sakurajima actually Toko Kirishima? No way in hell. At the very least, Mai hadn't told him anything about that, and she was the one who'd first told him about Toko Kirishima. That is true. A younger colleague from her agency had insisted she was the next big thing, so Mai had tried her music out. The voice is kind of similar, though. At that point, they reached room 301. Today's subject was foreign languages. Sakata had gone with Spanish as his elective. Later, yep. Takumi had picked Chinese on the grounds that he knew some kanji, so they split up in the hall and Sakata headed into class alone. In the classroom, the first thing he heard was loud laughter. The source was five girls clustered near the doorway. They were all wearing long skirts, somewhere between yellow and khaki, plus matching t-shirts and sneakers. Their outfits were so similar you could tell people they were an idol group in costume, and he believed it. Sakata wasn't really one to criticize fashion. Takumi had also been wearing a t-shirt, easy pants, and a black backpack, so they pretty much matched too. Sakata's style was what Mai had given him to celebrate passing the entrance exam. He slipped past the chatty girls and grabbed a seat on the aisle toward the center. The lecture hall was all long desks with 3 seats behind each. The width was about the same as high school classroom, but this was a little longer. That made it feel long rather than big. Sakata took out his Spanish textbook and then the math book he was using at work. He opened the latter to prep for his evening class. He first solved the practice problem himself. As he scribbled equations in his notes, a voice said, "Mind if I sit here?" He looked up and blinked at the owner of the voice. It was Miyori Mito, the girl he'd met at the party Friday. Her hair was in the same loose knot. "I'd rather you didn't." He'd just been accused of taking her home. After all, evidently he'd riled up a few of the boys. The last thing he wanted to do was subject himself to more unwarranted suspicions. "I'm sitting here anyway," she said, tweaking her long skirt as she did. There's plenty of room elsewhere, but you're the only person here I know. You could have matched languages with a friend." The language program offered more than just Spanish and Chinese. It also had German, French, Italian, etc. She'd have known she had no friends here in the first class last week. But in lieu of an answer, she sighed dramatically. He pretended not to hear this. Going back to his math, she sighed again, louder. "Sorry, am I being obnoxious? Not to a level worth apologizing for." He kept solving. "So I am being obnoxious then. Did you get some bad news?" he asked, like he didn't care. "Will you listen? Do you want me to listen?" Manami and the others went to the beach over summer vacation, and I wasn't invited. She pursed her lips, looking very disgruntled. She glared balefully at the mascot character on the keychain dangling from her index finger. Sakata's eyes met the mascots. Perhaps it was a souvenir they brought back for her. "Well, if she picked Sanpo-chan, your friend has great taste. You know who she is?" "I haven't lived in Fujisawa 3 years for nothing." Her full name was Enoshima Sanpo-chan, a local mascot who officially and unofficially promoted the allure of Fujisawa. And the beach snub was probably just 'cause you don't have a phone. This logical conclusion earned him a sidelong glare. What did she come back bragging about? The hunks who hit on her? She didn't, so I assume nothing like that happened. Miyori looked a bit smug there. She hooked the keychain onto the fastener on her pen case. "You act like you definitely would have been hit on if you had been with them. Not acting, just thinking." She propped her cheek up on her palm, scowling. "So mean," he said with a laugh. What even are friends?" "Uh-oh, that's a she's crazy face." Miyori was still leaning on her arm, but her eyes had turned toward him. More she crazy and a hassle face. "Now who's being mean?" "That barely qualifies," he said, acting all modest. This got an eye roll out of her, followed by a third sigh. This one wasn't forced. It felt like it had spilled out naturally. "She's trying to make up for it by putting a mixer together for me. Isn't that nice?" Miyori shot him another reproachful glare. "If you're not into it, just tell her you don't appreciate being the bait to lure hunks to her mixer." He figured it was given that her name on the roster would attract next level dudes. The vibe at last week's party had proved that. "Who do you think I am, Asasagawa? A girl so cute she'd steal all the boys without even trying, so her friends won't bring her to the beach," he said, writing the next step of the problem down in his notes. "So harsh," she grumbled, but her tone made it clear. Part of her agreed with him. She was only too aware why they ditched her. This was likely not the first time that had happened, nor would it be the last, and she was sick and tired of it. "If you don't wanna, don't go to the mixer then." "A mixer? I want in," cried a cheery new voice, and not just the voice, the whole girl. A mixer, I want in," cried a cheery new voice, and not just the voice. The whole girl leaned into the gap between them. Sakata and this girl went back a bit before either of them had started college. Her name was Uzuki Hirukawa. Idols aren't allowed at mixers. Wait, so okay. So Uzuki Hirokawa, I almost like forgot, like throughout this whole reading and stuff that I've been doing, I almost forgot that Uzuki Hirokawa is like on the cover of this light novel, and assuming that she's going to be like the focus of this story. It's so weird that she's barely popping up now after going through like a quarter of this light novel. It's so weird. All right. Uh, damn. Cool. She'd probably said, "Oh yeah, right?" But this was rendered unintelligible by the bubble tea she was sipping on. Why was Uzuki here? Simple. She was also a student at this university. Dang, so like everyone goes here. So Maya Sakurajima, Sakata, Nadaka goes here, Miyori Mito, freaking Ikumi Akagi, and now Uzuki. Everybody goes to this freaking university. Um, Dang. So I was Uzuki here. Simple, like she was also a student at this university. Like Sakata, she was majoring in statistical science. Nadaka had declared early on that she was going to college, and that had turned out to be infectious. Uzuki had decided to give it a shot herself. Nobody had told Sakata she was even sitting the exam at the orientation. She and Nadaka had just rolled up together, and he'd been pretty surprised. But now she misread his gaze entirely and held out her bubble tea. Want a sip? She asked. Better not. Indirect kisses from active idols were probably a whole thing, but bubble tea is the bomb. Every time I drink it, I just wind up with a heap of tapioca at the end. But it's so good, I just don't have a knack for it. Fair enough. Somehow they miraculously managed to come to an understanding with that last stroke, on the surface at least. Uzuki inhaled some more tapioca through her straw. He could smell the sugar from here. She munched on it for a moment, looking from Sakata to Miyori and back again. Your new girlfriend? That huge pause, and all that came out after it was nonsense. Nope, she's cute. He trailed off, unsure how to define their relationship. No apt phrases came to mind. They'd only just met Friday and didn't really know each other yet. Miyori said, I'm a potential friend. Well, I'm Uzuki Hirokawa, and I'm already friends with him. She reached out and gave Miyori an enthusiastic handshake. The up and down motion was so intense it shook Miyori's head as well. How do you know him? Or how do you know him? Miyori asked, surviving the violent greeting. He's Kaide's brother, Uzuki said, like this explained anything. She doesn't even know Kaide. His sister had been the primary reason they got to know each other, and she still thought of him as an accessory. You didn't mention his sister, Asasagawa. She's friends with Hirokawa. You've saved me from a lot of exposition. Yeah, Kaide's a fan, I guess. While Sakata was filling Miyori in, Uzuki dashed off to the front of the class. Okay, so this is where that picture comes from. So there's Uzuki there with her boba tea or whatever she has. Damn. Best idol for sure, man. I know. I love her interactions. She's so funny. She's like always got that bubbly attitude, and just, I don't know. She's super cool. I love her character a bunch, especially after seeing it at the end of Volume 8. Yeah, she's great. I'm glad to see we're getting to finally see a little bit more of her now. Everyone, good morning. It was almost like she was on stage and greeting her audience. The five girls clustered up front started returning the greeting. Uzuki joined them, and they were now 6, but since the other 5 were all dressed in matching outfits, Uzuki's thigh-hugging skinny slacks and long cardigan made her stick out like a sore thumb. Sakata found himself remembering the ugly duckling, but this one was already a swan. Asasagawa, Miyori said, like she was logging a complaint. What? You know a lot of cute girls. Mito, you're one of them. That's not how I meant it. She glared at him like he knew better. Then she frowned. Did you drop the honorific? If you're a potential friend, I figured we could close the gap. He'd finally finished solving the math problem. Now all he had to do was convey this knowledge to his students. Asasaga was a very long name. So, Azusa sounds like an express train. Sagawa, like the transportation company. Sakata feels a bit too familiar, so I guess Asasagawa it is. They looped back around to where they began, but at this point, the Spanish professor arrived. Okay. Dang. So far, so good. The read so far has been really great. I love the vibes of this so far. Ah man, seeing Uzuki again got everything. I don't know. Like, I mean, so far everything has been great. The conversations that he's had with multiple characters, especially with the Miyori Mito girl coming into the fray in multiple scenes. Uzuki Hirokawa just coming up right now. Getting to see Mai again and the interactions that they kind of have right there now, and Kaide and seeing her kind of yeah, just her progress and everything. Her working now, having a phone. It's pretty crazy, like what kind of things have gone down in this time span, like the year and a half gap or whatever little time jump that we got there. Um, but yeah, dang. All right, so I believe I'm gonna kind of cut things off right here and continue the reading again, probably in another couple of days or so. I might do it maybe on like Friday or Saturday, but so far so good. I'm enjoying the heck out of this read from everything that we've gotten so far. Getting a lot more of Toko Kitashima conversation going. People, thinking that it might be Mai Sakurajima being who Toko Kitashima really is or something along those lines. It's yeah, definitely a lot of interesting conversation. Little plot points moving, like parallels or whatever, just things relating to each other, like the whole Sara Himeji thing kind of coming up into the story. We know where she was kind of from now and get like somewhat getting introduced to her character and things like that. But yeah, things are looking good. I'm enjoying the heck out of this read so far. I can't wait to continue the reading. But yeah, like hopefully I can maybe start the reading again. I want to see if I can maybe do it tomorrow. I have work tomorrow, and I'm hoping that I'm not like super tired to the point where I can't like continue the reading. But yeah, tomorrow if I'm good like energy wise and whatever, and I'm not like extremely tired and don't fall asleep like super early, I'll see if I can maybe do it then. But for sure, I'm gonna try to do it on Friday or Saturday this upcoming, because that's when I have my days off and stuff. So I'm expecting to maybe do it then. But yeah, man, Braun, I appreciate you for being in here. Jeffrey, Richard, Average Enjoyer, everybody that popped in, everybody else who might have popped in too that's watching it, or just anybody that's watching it afterwards and stuff, the VOD after. In general, hope you all have a good day, rest of the day. Yeah, I hope that things are looking good on your side. I appreciate you all for stopping in. The reading, like I said, it's just what Braun said. It's very refreshing. It feels very different, but the vibe is good, and I'm loving it so far. But yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of the day. I will catch you all pretty soon to continue this reading. It's looking good so far, but yeah, hope you all have a great one. Give the video a like if you guys can. The stream a like if you guys can. I'd greatly appreciate it. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already and you're catching this and you aren't already. And also hit that notification bell too to get notified for when I do go live and do these live streams. So yeah, that's going to be happening in the near future. Hope you all have a great one, and I'll catch you all later. See ya.